Tonight is Congressman Michael Cloud, a strong advocate for American sovereignty and strategic national interests. Congressman, it's good to see you again. I have made the case before on this show that if we paid each citizen of Greenland $1 million, you would overcome a lot of this problem and it would be budget dust. Where am I wrong?
That could be the case. It might be the case. First of all, I hear birthday wishes are in order, so happy birthday. That is one of the ideas that have been tossed around. Understanding that Greenland is a very important strategic place in the Earth. And one of the things from being there that the maps that they have on the wall there are different than the maps that we see here. And I think understanding the strategic importance of it, just take that globe you have and look at it from the top, and you realize that where we were at the Space Force Base is about 6 hours from D.C., but it's about 6 hours from Moscow as well. And that just gives you an idea of the strategic importance of that place.
Well, I'll say, Congressman, thank you for the birthday wishes. One of my wishes was to go to Greenland, but law school had other ideas. This show had other ideas, so I'm rather stuck. We'll have to save that for another trip. But you're right, the strategic importance of Greenland cannot be overstated. But I think there's also this hesitance from U.S. officials to overstate the actual national security implications that Greenland poses. Is that the sense that you get when you talk to, our DOD folks behind the scenes?
Well, there's an understanding that's part of a system, and what's going on there is important. There's a radar system that basically covers Europe and Asia that would allow us to see any sort of incoming missiles. They're tracking our space assets. Some of that stuff we use every day, from our GPS satellites to weather tracking stuff to certainly more sensitive items. And then now we have to track the threats to those systems as well. And so it's an important location. A lot of science is also being done or being used as a base. Obviously, those scientific trips are well vetted if you're going to, use the Space Force Base as kind of a launching point. But the people who are working there are doing good work under tremendous, and it's definitely a different world. The circumstances that they have to live and work in every day to do what they can to protect our country.
Yeah, I read at one point that their average temperature is well below negative 40 for good portions of the year. So, yes, it's not a very livable place. But
yeah, we lucked out and it was hovering just at zero. So.
Well, that's tropical for them. Are there alternatives? Are there other ways to protect the interests that we have at stake over, placing actual assets on the ground? Don't we have technology now that can help start securing that area?
Well, like I said, it's part of a system. Obviously, President Trump has talked about how strategically important it is. There's a lot of submarine traffic that potentially happens in that area, in the Arctic Circle.
Sure.
And again, if you look at the map from the top, you see how very close Greenland is to the Soviet, or to Russia, what was the Soviet Union, to Europe, and everything that's happening in that half of the world is very close to where we were in Greenland at what they call the top of the world. So it is of strategic importance, certainly as technology develops. We're developing other assets as well. But it's a certain point. Not to mention, as you mentioned, it's rich of rare earth minerals and the economic activity that could happen there. There's a lot of development that could happen. Certainly, with at a very minimum, a deeper, richer partnership with Greenland, if not what President Trump has been talking about in it becoming part of the United States.
Yeah, supposedly those rare earth minerals are why China is suddenly entering the chat, so to speak. They are very interested in establishing a foothold in Greenland. But this whole conversation about rare earth minerals, I think it has some people spooked because it's just so it's difficult to quite put into numbers what's really happening with rare earth minerals. But the China angle to this conversation, is that a real threat, or is it just China being China?
Well, China at the moment does control a substantial part of the rare earth minerals, and this was one of the reasons why they were so excited about every other country but them accepting all the Green New Deal mantra is the heavy reliance on
Sure.
rare earth minerals. Now, it's important for some, from everything from our cell phones to military technology, and we've got to make sure that we have a supply chain that doesn't run through China. That can be happen with Greenland. There's also the Congo. Part of the agreement with Ukraine could essentially solve that problem, and so there's a number of ways to get at a solution to that. But it's certainly something that we need to address, and we are rich in rare earth minerals as well. If we can develop, and I'm sure the Trump administration is a lot more friendly to doing that than the Biden administration has been.
Yeah, I understand some of the obstacles are extracting them in a way that's not toxic to the surrounding environment. But I've also spoke to folks who are working on ways to overcome that. So it's a very interesting topic. I want to move on to another issue. You and Congresswoman Beth Van Dyne introduced the American Entrepreneurs First Act. This is legislation codifying President Trump's new SBA reforms to ensure only U.S. citizens, nationals, or lawful permanent residents, not illegal immigrants, visa holders, or DACA recipients, can access federally backed small business loans. How serious of a threat of continued abuse of SBA loans by ineligible applicants exist right now?
Well, the truth is we don't know the extent of it because a lot of that information is held in secret, shall we say, and is confidential. We've done our best to look into it, but the one thing that we have to do as Congress in this season where President Trump is making a lot of headway is we've got to make sure that we are codifying the gains, so to speak. And one of the big things we can do to make sure that the border problems stays solved, if we can say so, is to make sure that we're turning off the magnet that brings people here. And so if we don't have funds going through the Small Business Administration, in this case, going to illegal aliens, that's one less magnet pull on people coming into the United States. Not to mention that the whole point of this would be U.S. taxpayers helping to fund stimulation of the U.S. economy. And we are all for foreign investment coming in, but it ceases to be foreign investment if U.S. taxpayers are underwriting it. So this is an important bill to make sure that we're codifying the good work that President Trump is doing. And it's in committee this week for markup, so we expect it to get out of committee this week and then head to the floor.
Interesting. I wonder if there are parallels here to an argument for also applying this to student loans, not for green card holders or visitors or students, but more for withholding, I guess, taxpayer funds from illegal immigrants who are taking federal loans out. I guess there are rules in place already regulating all of that, aren't there?
Yes, we should be taking these kind of actions. And again, everything that we hear that President Trump is doing should be a note to Congress if we're not working it on already that we should. And I can tell you one of the frustrations of being in Congress is, tonight we'll have votes on what they call suspension bills. And oftentimes there'll be a report or a report on a report or some new thing that needs to be done that really doesn't move the ball forward when we could be taking up legislation like this and moving it again in short order. This is a unique window of opportunity where we have a president who's willing to do the hard work to make the changes that we need to in order to provide a course correction for our country. We as Congress have got to realize, and we campaigned on it saying, hey, we had 18 months to save the country. This is a unique window of opportunity where we have a transformative president, we have the House, and we have the Senate, and we've got to do our due diligence to get the job done. And so this is one part of that effort to make sure that we're ensuring that taxpayer dollars going out through loans, through the SBA, do not go to illegal aliens. And so we're going to be pushing them to move this forward, again, through committee this week and hopefully to the floor very soon thereafter.
Congressman, before I let you go, I want to talk about the midterms real quick. There's conflicting poll numbers out there, some showing that there's wavering on the Trump agenda because of the effects of the tariff wars. The Trump administration has warned that these would be temporary pains, that this is all part of a longer plan towards a healthier economic future. That said, Democrats are taking advantage of this. They're really trying to take advantage of any kind of weaker sentiment towards the Trump administration to use it towards the midterms. Talk to us about just the candid sentiment of your colleagues, your Republican colleagues going into the midterms. Do you feel that some of these lingering questions and wavering sentiments may be rectified by the time you get to midterms? And does Democrat disorganization play in your favor?
First of all, what we see coming from the left is really a grasping at straws. He's doing exactly what he campaigned on. He's doing exactly what he said he would do. And if there's any sort of accusation to be made against the president, it's the fact that we finally have a president doing what he said he would do. As a matter of fact, he's not the first president to talk about the fact that we've got to right the ship when it comes to tariffs. It seems in the minds of the left, the only time that a tariff is a bad thing is when the U.S. is imposing it. It's been imposed against us from these nations, as President Trump has shown, and even as he instituted reciprocal tariffs in order to bring people to the table, even then they weren't actually, in most cases, fully reciprocal, maybe averaging at about 50% of what they were charging us oftentimes. But the key point is to bring them to the table. They're at the table negotiating. These are trade agreements that will likely stand for decades, so you don't want to make them overnight. You want to make sure that you do the work and make sure that we get the right deal for the American people. And again, this is a course correction. We are restructuring the U.S. economy on solid ground this time, bringing back a strong manufacturing capability that's needed for national security, as well as a strong middle class. And so these are important things that needed to be done, and the president was wise in going big and going bold early on. That way, by the time the next election cycle comes around, we'll begin to see the benefits of it, and I expect that we'll see a strong support for the president and his policies and the work that we're following up to do in Congress to make sure that that stays permanent.
Congressman Cloud, a pleasure as always. Thank you for making the time.